Welcome to the podcast. Súbele volumen. Conversation with the people who were with me. In the world TV. Carlos tonight. Historias de un reportero. Carlos tonight. Dale que viene lo bueno.
Bienvenidos and welcome to Carlos Tonight. I really appreciate your support. Thank you for listening and, of course, for watching. I'm really excited to introduce you to my guest. His name is Dr. John De Oca. He is a board-certified nurse practitioner. He is also a relationship expert, coach, mentor, and teacher. He's also known as the Relationship Prescriber. Dr. John De Oca, thank you so much for being here. I do appreciate it. How are you?
I'm very good. Thanks so much for having me.
Thanks for being here. So let's get into it. I know there are a lot of different types of relationships, like a relationship with your boss and your family, friendships, romantic relationships. In a recent blog, you wrote about the relationship with ourselves. Tell us why that's so important.
So crucial. And, part of this has a very spiritual component, but really it's our inner self that dictates our outer world. And I've come to find that myself in my own experiences and just working with clients. So it's really important just to have a good sense of self. Also know what you want, what works for you, what jives with you, because this will create better relationships for you.
And I think that's so important to remind people that, you should always put yourself first. From personal experience, it can be a tough thing to do. Dr. De Oca, how would you start that journey to loving yourself?
Yeah, I think it's an ongoing process. I don't think there's any simple route to it. But what I've come to find working with enough people and talking to enough people about their own journeys is that it's more so like, how much pain can you endure before you start working on yourself? Like, when is your comfort zone going to come to an end, to the point where you want to really take a good look at yourself in the mirror and say, what's going on? What am I creating? What's my part in all this? And how can I make things better for myself?
Do you think having an issue with not loving yourself kind of damages your future outlook in terms of finding a partner, or maybe having a better relationship with a boss or family?
I do. So I think, some of it's at the subconscious level, but I think how we feel about ourselves will relate to the kind of experiences we're having with people, whether it be romantic partners, friendships, family members, bosses. I think when it comes to the working relationships, sometimes we come in a culture where someone's dictating our worth to us. They're doing evaluations on us when it comes to performance and things like that. So we're so ingrained in looking to these external parties for validation as, almost like reactionary to everything that we're doing, versus kind of being proactive in what we're setting forth and what we're willing to tolerate.
Absolutely. I read a quote the other day that said, "You can't love other people until you love yourself." And it holds true as we talk about relationships today. How would you define a healthy relationship?
I think a healthy relationship is really based on the dynamic between the two individuals, and it'll look different for everyone because, we're all different people. However, I would say, a healthy amount of communication, a healthy amount of conflict as well, and conflict resolution. I think that's a big navigator of how healthy the relationship is. If there's no conflict within the relationship, it may seem all pretty and shiny on the outside, but all it takes is to pull that one thread and the relationship will come tumbling down.
Now, a lot of times people are able to see all those red flags as you meet somebody that you're not able to see because you're so deep into that relationship, whatever type it is. What are the signs that this relationship is not a good one?
So red flags is tricky for me. I think, we use the term red flags, that's so cautionary and everyone needs to get out right then and there. And I don't find that necessarily to be the truth. What I do find, though, is that red flags are something that we should kind of pause and stop and notice and actually be curious about, more so in the beginning of us getting to know someone. And just exploring those behaviors more than, tapping into our fear or our inclination to leave. That's not me saying that we need to ignore red flags, but let's do more about being curious about others versus like tapping into cynicism and ruining something that could be potentially a good relationship for us.
Gotcha.
That answers your question.
Yes. So I've been on both sides where I was going towards a relationship and I saw the red flags, but I was ignoring them. I have friends who can't see the red flags. I usually give my opinion and kind of step back and let them figure things out for themselves. Is that a good thing to do, or what's your advice?
Ultimately, you have to. And, this is where my own relationship philosophies, especially in the romance setting, on chemistry come into play, because chemistry has us acting so outside of ourselves where we're easily able to ignore these red flags or throw them under the rug because we're so, into the attraction, and all these chemical receptors in our brain are on overdrive. So we're not necessarily seeing straight. That being said, being a bystander to someone ignoring red flags, the most you could kind of do is just guide them. And eventually you have to pull back too, because this could also,
damage your friendship,
damage your relationship with the person. Yeah.
Wow. So I think this is a good segue into my favorite type of relationship, and that's friendship. I know people come into your life and they stay a while and then they leave, but there are some friends that stick around for a long time. I have a friend named Martha who I met in freshman year of high school. She was my prom date, and we've been friends ever since. And I was, at her wedding, and every time we talk is just laughter and just joking. And we can go long periods of time without talking to each other. And when we do pick it up, it's kind of like where we left it off. How do we spot a good, genuine friend, and how do we keep them?
I think you have to get very clear on what friendship is to you. And there's different levels of friendship. I may have a friend that I go to the gym with, but like, am I sharing deep stories about myself? Am I going to them in need? It really depends on the individual. And that's why, going back to what we spoke about in the beginning, it's so important to get that sense of self. I have clients that I work with on their friendships. They might not feel as close as you do to your friend from high school because you're not in contact that often. So it's really kind of being clear on what works for you and what doesn't. And just because something doesn't work doesn't mean that friendship is no good, but maybe we need to almost recategorize that kind of friend in our mind, because sometimes, we could know someone for a long time and, we could have tons of laughs and tons of good times, but maybe when we turn to that person in a time of need, they're not there for us. This doesn't make them I'm a bad person, but like these things kind of bring to light, like how close that friendship really is, or where we could kind of like put them in the box in our mind.
Yeah, I was checking out your blog about this topic, and I was reminded of some of the people in my life where I have one person that usually just talks about himself and never asks, hey, how's your day? Or I have that friend who started dating somebody and then just drops me like a bad habit, only to come back just when they have problems. Is that something you see a lot of with your clients?
It is. I don't necessarily think these are bad friends, but more so victims of conversations that we need to have to kind of set the boundary. So letting someone know that, I love you as a friend, but we can't just have a friendship when you're single, or we can't just have a friendship when you're, going through rough times. Like, I'm a person too. And seeing how the person responds to that conversation, because I've been on the receiving end and the giving end of that conversation, and it doesn't always necessarily go badly. It's just more so like, these are how you kind of grow in your friendships. And what I find tricky about friendships specifically is that there's no one rule for everybody. So some people want very, very, surface level friendships, and that's all they want. Some people want friendships of depth and understanding, and just knowing what works for you again is going to help you be successful in your friendships.
Conversation with the people who were with me in the world TV. Carlos tonight, Carlos tonight. Historias de un reportero. Carlos tonight, Carlos tonight. Dale que viene lo bueno.
All right, Dr. De Oca, let's talk about romantic relationships. When courting someone, what are the do's and don'ts? And I mean, like I've been accused of being too aggressive or not too aggressive. What do you say about that?
So there's gonna be a revolving theme here. It's gonna go, what are you comfortable with and what do you like to do? Because just because, let's say, you're doing something that's so aggressive to somebody else, that doesn't mean you should stop doing what you're doing. I mean, I don't know what the circumstances are, but you do what you like to, how you like to court or be courted. You know, not everything works for everybody. So it's really kind of getting specific and in tune with, how do I feel when I do this behavior? For an example would be, if, you know, I'm buying gifts and it's only the date too, does this feel comfortable to me? That if to the point where I'm so sure it's comfortable with me, if someone declined my gift and said, hey, you're coming on too strong, I would feel secure in that. These are things that we need to uncover. And really why, when we're dating, like it's good to take some time and just date to explore ourselves.
I know there are a lot of apps and websites that are focused on connecting people romantically. Is it a good way to go if you're looking for that partner?
Yeah, I think apps are great. You know, I think apps provide us with some insight into the person before we actually sit down and have that date with them. So let's say if you were to meet someone at a bar and you automatically go on a date, you know, there's not much of a getting to know the person. And then you're sitting down and possibly, you know, having a meal with them or something that you could get uncomfortable with because, you know, they might violate some boundaries of yours. But with an app, you know, you have your exchanges on the app, then you could exchange numbers, you could FaceTime. So there's levels before you're actually going and sitting down in front of that person, if that's something comfortable to you. Some people don't like that. They want to just get out, you know, get on the app, do a few exchanges and set the date. But on the other hand of that, you get a lot of time there to get some real personal insight into who you're going to go on that date with.
Do you think the pandemic has helped with dating, like getting to know someone like on an emotional level?
I think in ways, yes. So, you know, some of the cons of the pandemic is that, you know, we're more scared to get out there and be exposed, not just to COVID, but to other people, and we don't know what their behaviors are. So there's the downside there. But what I've seen too as an upside is that the pandemic has been able, especially with newer relationships, to kind of propel that emotional connection, especially when lockdown happened. And sometimes all there was like, you know, frequent FaceTimes. There was nowhere to really go, maybe a walk in the park. So it kind of took all the other options out that kind of delude you from, let's say, commitment, and gave you the opportunity to have, you know, a more meaningful connection if that was something you're looking for.
So when you're dating someone, how far into dating before asking them to be your boyfriend or girlfriend?
I don't think there's a one rule for all there too. You know, pacing, I've had some couples that have been really successful and they've maybe had 3 dates and decided to become official. Some people it takes 3 to 6 months. So it's more so like where you're at and how you treat relationships. Some people are very, very good at like diving in and just going all for it. Some people need to like inch their feet into the water before they get to the deep end of the pool.
I used to know this girl who would break up with a person and then like 2 days later has a new person. And then like a year later they separate and then the next day with a new person. Is that healthy?
Not knowing too much of the details, I'm still going to say no.
Okay.
To me, when you're jumping from partner to partner, it's when are you spending some time working on yourself in solitude, reflecting on like what's going on. It's so easy for us to lose ourselves in another person. It's like a way to avoid ourselves. So not knowing this individual, she very well could be doing that. I myself, in my own personal relationships, I remember when I broke up with an ex of mine, I was immediately ready to start dating, because prior to that, I had been single for such a long time. I didn't feel like I needed to necessarily do more work or reflection on myself. And I did want somebody. So I was kind of ready once that relationship ended, but it really depends.
When you're in a relationship, whatever type of relationship, how important is communication with your partner?
Severely. We don't communicate enough. And even if we feel like our communication is good, sometimes it's not necessarily the type of communication we need to have. So responsiveness doesn't necessarily equate to a well-communicative relationship. It's how do we respond to conflict? How do we express our needs to each other? How do we kind of set the tone for things that we want and are willing to accept?
Although a recent study showed that a lot of people are okay with just being single, there are many people like me who just want a happy ending. Does that exist in our world today?
I think as an eternal optimist, I think it does. It's just more so how much work do you want to put in to get there so that it stays happy?
Conversation with the people who were with me in the world TV. Carlos tonight. Historias de un reportero. Carlos tonight. Dale que viene lo bueno.
The Relationship Prescriber, that's what you're known for. Tell us more about your practice and your services and where we can find you to ask questions about relationships or dating or anything like that.
Yeah, so I'm a nurse. I've been a nurse for 15 years. Then I became a nurse practitioner, and I was working in the plastic surgery setting for a long time. And then at that time, I was like, I want to form this business model where I'm helping people on their appearance, because that was really important to me, but also helping them on the internal features as well. So their relationships, their communication skills. As I was moving forward to try to develop that business model, like I just felt an extraordinary amount of fulfillment helping people on their relationships. My doctorate actually is on professional relationships and how to fix hostile work environments, workplace bullying, peer relationships that have gone sour. So I ultimately, just discovered for myself, relationships are at the center of so many things that we do and how we justify meaning and fulfillment into our lives. So I wanted to help people in that way and build a business that would look at all different relationships. One thing that is funny, I did a consultation recently with two business partners. And that was a first for me because, yes, I do work relationships, but it's usually like at a corporate setting where I'm being asked to come in and give an assessment and like recommendations of teaching and work and things like that. But it didn't even dawn on me until recently, like how much business partners could struggle in getting their needs met or when they're having conflict. So when most of my clients are here because of romantic relationships, but I always had the understanding that let's look at all of our relationships and how we show up for those before we delve into like the more important one, which is the romance, because the other ones make up the bulk of our everyday life too. And how we're showing up in those will dictate kind of how all our relationships are working in conjunction with one another. So that's what I spend my time doing. I work with individuals either on the corporate level or one-on-one, and looking to, expand and reach more and help more people. I'm in the process of developing some courses. I'm really trying to get my writing out there now so that people could get more messaging and understanding and kind of just like take a message for the day that maybe they don't have the time or the finances to, dedicate to coaching or therapy or anything like that. So that's how the Relationship Prescriber got formed. I've been around this is year 4 for me.
Oh, congratulations.
Thanks so much. Yeah. So ultimately it's my life's work. I love talking about this stuff. In terms of finding me, I'm on Instagram, The Relationship Prescriber, and I have my website, therelationshipprescriber.com, where I have my blog as well. Yeah.
And are you able to do Like online consultation and stuff?
Yeah. So since COVID, pretty much everyone I'm seeing now is online.
Oh, okay.
Going back and forth to, mask mandations, this and that. It's just more comfortable for everyone that we interacting online or on the phone. It's been working good so far.
So not just people in your area, but across the country, would you say?
Yeah. I would say I have more people on the West Coast than I do on the East Coast.
Gotcha. Any or every age group, I would assume?
I will work with every age group, but typically it's the younger adults, so like 30s, 40s, even some 20s. But I'm willing to work with any age group. Yeah.
And do you have any upcoming programs or maybe seminars that you're working on that you can share with us today?
Yeah, so the two things that I'm working on right now, they're probably going to be the second half of the year, is going to be a dating specific course and a friendship specific course. Those will all be online.
Sign me up.
But this way it's self-paced and everyone could kind of go at their own pace. They'll have access to me to answer. I can answer any questions that they may have along the way.
Perfect.
And to me, it's just the best way to kind of reach everyone through COVID.
Absolutely. All right, Dr. John De Oca, thank you so much for your time. I do appreciate it. God bless you, and look forward to maybe talking to you down the road.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
Conversation with the people who were with me in the world of TV. Carlos tonight, Carlos tonight.
And that's a wrap. Thank you for listening and, of course, for watching. But you can find everything we talked about on the show's notes. A big thank you to Dr. John De Oca. This episode was written and produced by yours truly, Carlos Correa. My theme was produced by Sken, Galis. Thanks for listening and for watching. And don't forget to leave a review when you can. Oh, and you can find more information on the show at carlostonight.com.